It's really a time of intuition, because if you can see or feel something's not quite there or they're not understanding, ask for clarity. Ask, like, did you understand when I said it? Because I'm feeling like it might have been either misunderstood or you didn't quite get it. Asking for that clarity is so important, because people will assume the wrong thing. People will jump to the wrong conclusion during Mercury retrograde. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast, where practical spirituality meets real life. Hi, I'm your host, Sheetal Story. I'm a psychic medium, grief support counselor, professional astrologer, and a human design reader, and of course, a law of attraction master coach. With my unique blend of spiritual and practical tools, I am here to help you align with your soul-led purpose and ignite a life that sets your soul on fire. In this podcast, we are going to explore the principles of energy, astrology, spirituality, and psychology to help you heal your grief and create an aligned life and business from the inside out. Whether you are looking to deepen your intuition, understand your cosmic design, or transform your business, this podcast is for you. Join me each week for insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories that will guide you on your journey to living your very best life. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Sheetal Story or wherever you listen to this podcast. Let's dive in and start this transformative journey together. Welcome to the Story of Spirit podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the dreaded, the often talked about, the infamous Mercury retrograde. And I'm at the time of this recording, we are in a Mercury retrograde, but the idea behind this podcast was to help you, empower you with information, not fear, and to understand what this great cosmic pause is all about. So in order to understand this, we got to go back into the astrology. And Mercury is the planet that rules our thinking, not our actual action taking, that's Mars, but our momentum in terms of our forward thinking, our what do we want to talk about, dream about. It's the way that we communicate, it's the way that we connect with one another. It is also about our coordination as well. We can get into a lot of accents during Mercury retrograde if you are not being careful and intentional about the way you are moving. And if you're trying to, driving erratically, Mars rules cars. So when Mars retrograde comes along, we also want to make sure we're driving very well. So the idea behind this is Mercury in Greek mythology was sort of the trickster. He is the messenger god. So, that trickster energy comes out when it slows down relative to the Earth. And that's what retrograde really means. It means that the planet in its orbit around the sun is going slower than the Earth. So all the planets, as they're orbiting the sun, go in a kind of elliptical. So they're not going circular around the sun. It is going in an elliptical. So because of gravity, it kind of swings out into space and swings back. And in that orbit, it goes faster and slower during certain times as it is orbiting around the sun. So all the planets, not the moon, will go slower or faster than the Earth, because the moon is so fast, it never goes slower than the Earth. So every other planet does have a retrograde. And a retrograde just means it's going slower than the Earth. So mathematically, slower than the Earth is a negative momentum. And that then comes out to be a negative trajectory. So we call that retrograde, or going sort of backwards, if you will. But the planet, let's be clear, does not go backwards. It is always in forward momentum in whatever, orbit it's going around the sun. So in the sky, when something is going slower than the Earth, it looks like it's going backwards. It's just like when you're in a car and the car beside you is now going faster than you. But I remember as a kid looking out the car window and being like, oh, it looks like they're going faster than me. Or we look like we're going backwards. It looks like we're going backwards, but it's not. We are just going slower than the car beside us. So it looks like we're going backwards. So that is what retrograde is. So if you hear about Mercury retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Pluto retrograde, those planets all go retrograde. And the inner planets, which we call our personal planets, which is Mars, Venus, Mercury, those go retrograde not very often. Well, so Pluto, Pluto goes retrograde for long periods of time. Okay. That's a slow outer planet, the outermost planet that we look at in astrology. Mercury goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. And then Venus will go retrograde every 18 months. And Mars goes retrograde every about 26 months or so. So Mercury goes retrograde, 3 to 4 times a year and for about 4 weeks at a time. So it's a personal planet. They affect us in our personality, the way that we operate. All the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, are all called interpersonal planets, and they affect us how we operate, as a collective. So they're kind of bigger. They do affect us, but not to the degree that our personal planets do. So we really pay attention to these personal planets. They have an impact on us. And if you think about it, we are energetic beings having this human experience, and this energy of these closer planets have more effect on the earth than these outer planets do. They're still there, they're a little bit more subtle. And depending, of course, on where they are in your chart or what are more prominent in your chart, you can have a different experience on a personal level. So you can also be born with Mercury retrograde. So if Mercury was going slower than the Earth at the time you were born, then that would encapsulate in your being. And how that would encapsulate in your being is that you're a slower processor, but you're more thorough. So, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, you might not be able to be quick in rebuttal or debates, that you need time to sink into what was being said and create a response that feels true to your heart. If you are born with Mercury retrograde and you're reading a book, it takes you longer to read through the book, but you internalize it because you put yourself in the book. You're understanding the story from an internalized place. You're bringing it in. It's sort of internalized versus externalized. So my husband has a very fast Mercury. He can read through a book super fast, but when I ask him questions about what he read, he has no idea. He's like, well, I read it. And I said, well, did you not think about it? He's like, well, not really. So fast, but not thorough, right? I have a very slow Mercury, and I also need time. I ask questions. I have to kind of think about it and internalize it. So I kind of got like the worst of both worlds, if you will. But also then when I know something, I know it, right? This is like something with astrology. When I took my 6-hour exam, that I knew I had to study for it and study it, and I had to, spit it out onto pages and answer questions. And it was right minus wrong, people. Like, so it's a hard exam to pass for ESAR, which is the International Society for Astrological Research, which I am a member in good standing and on their directory if you want to look me up. But that then I internalized this information and I knew it. That's why I like certifications, I think, is because then I can also internalize it. So, coming back to Mercury, when Mercury goes retrograde, it is a cosmic pause. It's a time for us to slow down, to revise, to reassess, to realign. They call it the rule of rees, where you are meant to just stow your row, and Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So these are very cerebral signs. I'm a Virgo, so I can say that. But it is very much a heady sign. We're always thinking about things and wanting to, take the next step, and our minds are always full and we can be overthinking things. And when Mercury goes retrograde, it can really mess up our world because you're not meant to live in your head. You're meant to live in your body, in your soul. So that part of you that is stuck in this energy is now being asked to come out of it. And that's when the universe hands me things that test my patience, right? Like tech glitches. I had so many tech glitches on this last retrograde that we are currently in. So at the time that this podcast is going to be released, it will be at a time that Mercury is retrograde, which was kind of divinely orchestrated because I was going to talk about something else on this podcast. But Spirit said, no, we need a survival guide for this because it's going to get a little bit more intense. And the flavor of the sign in which it goes retrograde in is also adds more to it, right? So we need to understand that piece, which I'm going to talk about Mercury retrograde through all the signs. And so you'll have this. So this will be a timeless wisdom piece that we're going to throw back to at any moment in time. So you just know if you're watching this and it's Mercury retrograde, or I sent this to you, or we put it out on social media, it's because you're meant to watch it now and understand the lesson, the wisdom of this, because nothing in the universe is on by accident. Everything is on purpose. And when you look at our life in this moment in time, in this evolved place, I'm going to say evolved in quotation marks because we're still doing not nice things to each other in this moment in time. There is this busyness that has occupied the industrialized age. You are doing so much more. I heard a statistic that you are bombarded with as many messages in a day, actually more in a day, than you would have had in your entire lifetime in the 1600s, 1500s, 1400s, right? Like you might have got a letter. You might have talked to your neighbor. You might have been talking to people in nearby towns or at the general store, but there's so much information coming at us all the time now through social media, through the news, through our interactions with each other. There's just a lot, even in our jobs, that is expected of us that never was. So our brains have adapted. We're neuroplastic, and the brain literally is Mercury. It is processing all this information, and it's trying to meet the needs of the moment. So if we don't have a cosmic pause, can you imagine? It would just be like running this race that is endless. Like this is a season to step back and to witness what is coming up for you. Now, if you're born during a Mercury retrograde, this feels like coming home, right? And if you're like, I don't know if I was born during a Mercury retrograde, you can look up your birth chart and look at the little Mercury sign and see if there's an RX next to it. Or you can have a reading with a professional astrologer and they can tell you for reals. So, if you've ever had a reading with me and I said you have a Mercury retrograde at the time you were born, I would have specifically pointed that out because it's a very important part or piece of understanding how you are meant to operate. Because if you're a Mercury retrograde person birth, by natal, then you cannot expect yourself to be fast to respond in conversations or in debates or in arguments. You will need time. You need 24 hours because that's the way you're meant to operate. And it doesn't mean that you're not smart. You actually have a genius quality to you. You just need time to formulate a response that feels like you. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. But I think the world really covets fast, right? Rebuttals and, debate club and all those things. Not everybody's on the debate club for a reason because it's not everybody's gift. Your gift is a different one. So nobody is worse or better. That's our mind liking to create hierarchy. You are actually created divinely perfect. And that's all you need to know. You're just created divinely perfect. You have gifts and talents. A Mercury retrograde is a gift and a talent, same as a fast Mercury. They're all gifts and talents. You just have to understand how to use it. So Mercury rules communication, technology, travel, contracts, and thought patterns. So anything we write, anything we think about, anything that we're sort of speaking about, right? It is purely intellectual. It is not emotional. And so retrograde time is a time to review, revise, reflect, and reconnect to that true part of us of why are we doing this thing. It's a good time to go back over contracts, over websites, over things that you have written and revise them, really see where you have missed crossing a T or dotting an I. True story. My astrology mentor, who I love so much, Chris McCrae, during a Mercury retrograde, she was writing her final book that came out. I actually have it here somewhere. It's on interceptions. Nope, another book she wrote. And as that book, she was writing it, and astrology books are hard because there's a lot of charts, there's a lot of analysis and data. You have to make sure that your data is being logged properly, that you have the rights to share that out into the world because sometimes it has birth times and things like that. And she had created a whole, I think, 3 chapters of her book had deleted during a Mercury retrograde on her computer, just gone. They couldn't find it. She brought it in. She was very, very tech savvy at Aquarius. Tech always just glitched for her though. And she lost 3 chapters. They could not find it. And it's just gone. So she had to rewrite it. And I remember her feeling so frustrated because she was feeling like she was running out of time. She was already in her 90s at this time. And she was like, I feel like I don't have the time. And I'm like, Chris, it's going to all work out. Like this is a Mercury retrograde. These chapters are going to be way better. She's like, I know. But so annoying. And I was like, yeah, so annoying. She rewrote them. And afterwards she's like, Sheetal, These 3 chapters are way better than the ones that I wrote. And she was so proud of herself. And I was like, yes, this is a cosmic lesson for me as well, being a Virgo. I just want to do it once and get it over with. I want to send the text. I want to send the email. And I really have to force myself during a Mercury retrograde to really read over it. I can feel my impatience. I just want to get on with it. I'm also noticing during this Mercury retrograde of how impatient I am in my car. You take a spiritual person, put them in their car, and you get to see how healed they really are, my friends. And yeah, I have some good music in the car. I meditate, take deep breaths. I'm like, okay, this is meant to slow me down. And it's not red lights, it's slow drivers, and I can't get around them. So that is the universe saying, slow down, Sheetal. We're sending you these speed bumps. Not actual speed bumps, you don't run over them, but it's time to take the sacred pause. It is not a punishment. And, think of the universe asking you, like, are you sure this is the direction you want to go in? Are you sure this is how you want to operate? Are you sure you want to put this out into the world? It's asking you to really review and sit with yourself. So that's why it's not a time, if you're an entrepreneur, to launch anything during that time. It's not a time to sign contracts. Travel can become a little dicey as you're handed all of these speed bumps, I like to call them, pauses. So it's not a time to launch major projects or products out into the world unless guided to do so or already in motion. Sometimes things happen. Or if you were born during a Mercury retrograde, perfect time. Another reason would be a good thing to launch is if you were revising something you had before and you're trying it again. So that's kind of a Mercury retrograde thing. You're going back and doing over again. We don't really like to encourage like operations or surgeries during a Mercury retrograde, but if they're going in to fix something that they didn't get the first time, that would be ideal during a Mercury retrograde. So it's kind of like if you're doing something and doing it over again, you can do it during a Mercury retrograde. So if you're doing a launch that you've done before and you revise something, might be a great time to do it during a Mercury retrograde because you are going to get some insights from that you wouldn't have otherwise. Large purchases and large technology purchases specifically, not a great time to do that during a Mercury retrograde. And really anything that when you sign a contract as well, it's hard because it's like Mercury retrograde almost makes you feel like you don't see all the terms and conditions in it. You're not reading everything. You think you are. That's why I say if you have to sign a contract during Mercury retrograde, because life sometimes, to get a lawyer to look over it, to get a friend to look over it, to get your significant other to look over it, get like 3 to 4 eyes, sets of eyes onto your documents, not a one-eyed person, although there's nothing wrong with that, but really just having enough people watching over it to make sure that you are not missing something, because you can miss something. Don't assume people get what you mean. Don't do that during a Mercury retrograde. Clarify everything. And I say it's really a time of intuition, because if you can see or feel something's not quite there or they're not understanding, ask for clarity. Ask, like, did you understand when I said it? Because I'm feeling like it might have been either misunderstood or you didn't quite get it. Asking for that clarity is so important, because people will assume the wrong thing. People will jump to the wrong conclusion during Mercury retrograde. Also, a terrible time, always a terrible time, but especially terrible time to gossip, right? Anytime you're talking about anybody behind their back and you didn't get their permission to share a story, or you're talking because you're projecting your judgment onto someone else, that will come around in another way. That person will either leak it, someone will hear about it, it will come back to you in some way. So obviously never a good time to gossip, but especially not a good time. So the rule here is, if you wouldn't say it to this person's face, don't say it behind their back. And don't resist delays. If you are delayed, like I said, delayed driving everywhere by slow drivers, it is a meant to be. It is a redirect on purpose. It is a slowing down on purpose, hitting every red light, an accident in front of you, you not being in the accident, gratitude, right? Blessings. This morning I was trying to log on for my memberships Q&A, and Facebook didn't recognize me. My password was an old password. I don't know how that could be when my password keeper is up to date, but had to go in and fish out my password from deep in the archives of my vault where I put all my passwords. Then I had to authenticate, and then my camera didn't recognize my camera. I had to fix that. one thing after another. And I just put a little note in the Facebook group saying, I'm sorry, I'm having tech glitches, Mercury retrograde. I will be in a few minutes. And everybody was super patient, right? And we ended on time. It actually went overtime, but it was fine, right? It was totally fine. There was no, I was feeling the pressure because I had said I would be there on a certain time. So honoring my commitments and then, a renegotiating of that commitment is saying, I'm running behind because of these things. Stay tuned. I will be there shortly. Just letting everybody know, right? So you're never assuming. You never assume during a Mercury retrograde because everyone will assume the opposite. It's true. What you do want to do during a Mercury retrograde or metrograde, which I'm going to just call it now, metrograde, is a review. Review past decisions, business structures, personal beliefs, reconnect with old clients, old friends, mentors, soul friends. Reconnection. It's a really great time. I got the nudge to reach out to one of my university friends today, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. And I just remembered as I'm recording this podcast, I got to do that. Refine your offerings, your brand, your systems. What's working? What's no longer working? What do you need to do to tie up loose ends? Where could you make your systems better? Revisit old journals, old creative ideas, spiritual practices you've abandoned. It's so true. I haven't meditated in a little while. And I sat on my bed this morning and I just meditated before I started the day. And I was like, this is giving me fuel. I need to bring this back. I used to meditate every day. And I do for little pockets of time, but not actually sitting down for 20 minutes and doing meditation. I'll do like a 5 minute or, here and there, but it is not the same as doing a 20 minute. And then resting. So, I mean, you don't have to wait for Mercury retrograde to rest, right? We are burning down the old systems that say you need to earn rest. You deserve to rest. And it's part of our cycles as humans and part of being of nature that nature rests. It doesn't go 24 hours, it doesn't go 24 hours, 7 days a week, 12 months of the year, right? It has winters, it has falls, it has nighttime where people, they go to sleep. Like you need to honor your cycles of rest. And it's a time of soul alignment, not speed. This is a powerful time too during Mercury retrograde to receive intuitive downloads. Keeping a dream journal, so in subconscious, especially if Mercury is retrograde during Pisces, that's a really subconscious time. So paying attention to the subliminal little messages that you're getting or the nudges from the universe, intuition is going to be more heightened during this time. You're not meant to think with your brain, you're meant to see with your soul during this time. That's why it's slowing down the mind so that we can really pay attention to those soul whispers. So, Mercury retrograde in each sign, depending on when you are listening to this episode, Mercury will be retrograde throughout the signs, retrogrades in 3 different signs every year. And they tend to go through the elements, right? So this year we're in a bit of a more of a fiery mode. Before it was in water. So it kind of, as it moves between, it'll kind of, sometimes it can span 2 signs, right? If it starts off at the beginning of one sign and then goes back into another sign too. So, paying attention to the astro forecast. If you're listening to my astro forecasts every Monday, I drop them actually on Sunday in the podcast platforms and on YouTube, but you can listen to them on Monday as well as when I put them out onto all the social media platforms. So it's, a really great time to just listen to the forecast ahead and understand the energy for what's coming up. But when Mercury is retrograde in Aries, your relationship with impulsive action, self-trust, leadership, and initiating projects are going to be tested and ask you to slow down and revisit. In Taurus, it's going to ask you to revisit issues and themes around finances, self-worth, pleasure, security, and values. When it is retrograde in Gemini, this is going to bring up issues around communication and communication patterns, social media, your voice, being social, your social circles, learning, and mental clarity, as well as communications, right? When Mercury is retrograde in Cancer, emotional safety, home, family roots, boundaries, the inner child, relationships with women in your life can come up for renegotiating, revisiting, reviewing, reassessing. During Leo, so if you're listening to this during the time that I'm actually releasing this, we are in a Mercury retrograde in Leo. This is about visibility, visibility or being invisible, choosing to be invisible, self expression, creative leadership, and inner confidence, right? What's your special sauce? What's your voice that you're putting out into the world? And where are you scared to say the thing? Or where are you not actually living in alignment with your true purpose and mission? Virgo. Oh, this is a difficult one. When Mercury retrogrades in Gemini and Virgo, that's their homes, its home sign. So it really is going to be very deeply felt during that time. And if you are Mercury is if you have a sun sign, rising, or moon sign in Virgo and Gemini, or a lot of placements in Virgo, Gemini in your chart, you definitely feel Mercury retrograde very, very deeply. So Virgo, this is going to mess up your routines. It's going to test you with perfectionism. If when Mercury goes retrograde in Virgo, it will mess with your routines, really test perfectionist tendencies, judgment, control, things around health, organization, and sacred service. Virgos love to be of service. They're quintessential servant of the zodiac. So, where are you not being of service? Where are your perfectionist tendencies pulling you back? Where's analysis paralysis stopping you in your tracks? If Mercury goes retrograde in Libra, this is about relationships, finances, fairness, not finances per se, but things that we value, fairness, codependency, people pleasing, and finding balance between your needs versus other people's needs. So it's going to bring up tests around how much are you giving away versus how much are you keeping for yourself, and where are you not negotiating win-wins instead of falling into win-lose situations. If Mercury goes retrograde in Scorpio, this is about power dynamics, intimacy. This one's about money blocks, emotional depth, and shadow work. So, what's bringing up the shadow is everything that we relegate to, I don't want to talk about it. I don't like that part of myself. I don't want to look at that part of myself. Everything that we feel shy to talk about in public, those are considered things that we relegate to the shadow because we have not fully accepted those parts of ourselves. They're all parts of us. So during a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, it's going to really highlight the shadows, which are these parts of you. When Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius, this is going to bring up your belief systems. It's going to mess with travel plans, with freedom, spiritual philosophy, long term vision can alter during this time. But remember, altering for greater, better things to come of it, right? Everything is happening for an opportunity for you. It's not trying to mess with your life and make it hard. This is trying to help you. When Mercury is retrograde in Capricorn, this is going to ask you, are you in the career that you're supposed to be in? Have you outlived your joy in your career? Structures of your life, discipline, goals, legacy building. Where are you not building legacy into your life, or where do you want to build legacy in your life, but you're feeling like maybe you can't? And maybe a helper comes in during that time and shows you that you can actually build legacy in this area of your life. Or you need to stop doing something that is actually preventing you. So let's say you want to leave a legacy of wealth for your family. Maybe you're frivolous spending, or maybe you need to start working with a certified financial planner, and then that will help you bring in the wealth. If Mercury goes retrograde in Aquarius, this is about community, humanity elevating, innovation, future vision. The nervous system regulation is also Aquarius. Aquarius also rules the internet. So waves unseen moving through the air. So this can really mess with technology, which is also Aquarius. And when Mercury goes retrograde in Aquarius, it can also sort of mess with our nervous system. So we might feel a little bit like shot. It's sort of our nervous system is on edge, or maybe a little jittery. And then even like technology is going to go haywire. But about your future vision, like what is it that you are really wanting to build in the world? Where are you not really being of service to humanity? Where are you deciding that maybe that's not your vision or mission, like that you can do something in that area? And then finally, when Mercury goes retrograde in Pisces, this is going to really bring forward your intuition, where you're not trusting yourself, surrender, where you're trying to control things, escapism, maybe where you are defaulting to spending money instead of looking at what's upsetting you, or eating your feelings, or drinking your feelings, or smoking your feelings. This is a time where you really have to sit with your feelings and understand being in spiritual alignment. What does that feel like? And creativity, right? Where can you be more creative in your life? Where Are you being too serious? Pisces, despite them being a very watery sign, they're actually quite brilliant and very thoughtful and also notice details. They want to do things right. So the opposite of Pisces is Virgo. So those opposite signs, Sagittarius, which is opposite of Gemini, and Pisces, opposite of Virgo, are very much affected as well by these Mercury retrograde signs. So it's a time where, Mercury doesn't like to be in those signs because they're considered detriment. And it's pretty deep because they do care about these detail pieces. They just have to deal with it. So some really great rituals for surviving Mercury retrograde, some tools, decluttering your emails, decluttering your space, decluttering, it's interesting because I had a friend offer to help me with some books and I felt such resistance to releasing these books that I spent money on, but I'm not reading them. But I don't want to give them away, but I'm not reading them. And I was like, what is that? I don't want to have that. I mean, how would it feel if I gave these books all away and let release them to people who are going to read them? Or how about if I just kept the ones that I really, 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 really want to read, and the rest of them that have been, suggested to me, and I can let those go to people who would want them. That feels good to me. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I can find a middle ground, a win-win. So that is really interesting. Cleaning up your digital space, emails, files, photos, ground daily, breath work, nature, body, meditation. That's what I added back into my routine. Do tech backups and double checks always, right? This is a great time to back up your hard drives, to make sure that your phones are backed up, that you're not going to lose anything. Also, when you're traveling, this is a time to make sure you have backups of everything. You take a picture of your passport, you have a photocopy of your passport somewhere safe, so that if you lose your passport, you can quickly get at least some travel documents that'll let you go back to your home country or out of the country and allow you to travel. So those backups, so important when you're traveling during a Mercury retrograde. I also would say pack some patience. This is a really good time to pack some patience. I remember taking a bunch of books with me on a Mercury retrograde plane trip I had to take. It was just when the event was. And I ended up reading the whole thing of The Alchemist because I was sitting on the tarmac in a plane for 3 hours. 3 hours. They would not let us off. We had to sit in the plane for 3 hours. Luckily, I had planned, I had gone to the bathroom beforehand, I packed snacks, and I had 3 books with me, and I could not put down The Alchemist. I binged it for those 3 hours, and the guy beside me is like, "You're into that book, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes, I am," because I knew this was going to happen. He's like, "What? You're a psychic?" I'm like, "I actually am." And he kind of laughed and I didn't. Having that kind of patience and knowing that it's a Mercury retrograde and things can go wrong, it's okay. You know what? Like I had a client tell me, sure enough, it's Mercury retrograde. My plane blew a tire taxiing out to the runway. I was like, better on the runway than in air, right? Or on landing. And she's like, yeah, no, totally. But we had to wait till they changed the tire and all the things. And she's like, I just knew it was going to be delayed and I was ready. And I was like, yes, better to be forewarned than and to be forearmed than to just be like, oh, I had no idea. So that's what astrology does. It just kind of gives you a heads up. And pull some tarot and oracle cards, just to tarot and oracle cards to give yourself a little bit of reassurance and connect in with your higher self, and be gentle with yourself. Expect the unexpected. Laugh. It's all you could do. As a guy cut me off in traffic and went 10 below the speed limit, I just started laughing. I was like, of course. Of course I can't get beside around you. Why are you in the fast lane? And then I put on some music and just danced, and I'm like, this too shall pass. So, something to journal on. I wanted to give you a journal prompt to end off this episode. If you're listening to us during a Mercury retrograde, this is a really great journal point. What lesson is this Mercury retrograde trying to teach me right now through slowdowns, misunderstandings, or delays that I am experiencing? What lesson is Mercury retrograde trying to teach me now through slowdowns, misunderstanding, and delays that I am experiencing? So perhaps that can shed some light, help you understand this cosmic energy, this great timed pause, and to just breathe in some patience and do the things that give you more patience, like eating, right? Nothing worse than a hungry person trying to navigate traffic, right? Pack some snacks, right? Pack a book, meditate, do some walking in nature, ground that energy into the present moment, because the present moment is calm. It's slow. Breathing exercises. I love the 4 in, 7 out. It activates the vagal nerve and it creates calm and oxygenation in the brain. So I hope that helps you to understand this cosmic energy and to not fear Mercury retrograde. I think there's a lot of fear mongering on social media, such as life when you're trying to get clicks, I suppose. That's not what I'm about. And if you think anyone can benefit from understanding astrology in a deeper way, the energy that comes onto this planet, whether you believe in gravity or not, it's there. It's the same thing with all of these cosmic forces. And we can flow with these cosmic forces versus fighting them or thinking something's wrong with you or something's wrong with the universe. You're not broken. It's just Mercury retrograde. So wishing you ease as I navigate saying words, as you probably will be navigating saying words as well. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And I am sending you off with so much love. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Story of Spirit podcast. I hope you have found inspiration, support, and practical insights to help you align with your soul-led purpose and live a life that sets your soul on fire. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us to reach more listeners and continues to provide valuable content. I sincerely appreciate every share, and I know it is how most people find me. It is because caring people like you have shared me with them at the right and perfect time. For more resources, insights, and to connect with our community, please visit us at www.sheetalstory.com and follow us on Instagram at sheetalstory. Remember, your journey to a more aligned and vibrant life is just the beginning, and I am here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep shining your beautiful light. This is Sheetal Story, signing off from the Story of Spirit podcast. Here's the legal ease that's required by our lawyers. This podcast and the YouTube channel represents the opinions of Sheetal Story and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical, psychological, or financial advice. This series is informational and entertainment purposes only. Because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional, your mental health dream team, your financial advisor, or anyone else that's an expert in the field in where you are thinking of making big choices in your life.